Welcome to the video. Today we are going to be discussing the best student loan refinance companies, and I decided to put together this video because we get this question all the time from people online, Facebook, YouTube, all these different things about comments about different companies. Now, first things first, how do we know about this stuff? Well, we've been around for 4 or 5 years and we manage about $1.6 billion in student loans, and so we have a good relationship with the student loan refinance lenders. We know, which ones do what their technology is good, which ones aren't, who's going to give you the best rates, and that's what we're going to go through in this video, okay? Now, quick disclosure, we're a little bit different than most people that you work with here at FitBucks. Our typical process for student loan refinancing is you go to fitbucks.com, you build a profile, you schedule a call, we help you decide if student loan refinancing is right for you or not, and then if it is, help you shop the different companies and say which loan do you go into, like a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, so on and so forth. And we help you walk through that process. When you go to those lenders through your FitBucks profile, it's all free because, here's a disclosure, they pay us, okay? It's awesome though, because we do so much volume, we can actually say to them, hey, this person needs this help, this person needs this help, and we can actually help you the entire process, not directly with the paperwork and stuff, but if you have any problems, we have reps at a lot of these companies that we can go to and say, hey, this person needs help, okay? Now, the other way, obviously, there's going to be links down in the YouTube video. If you guys click those links, obviously, we get paid for it. So had to put in that disclaimer. If you guys do that or want to shop these companies, do click the links. It helps us, obviously, and we can go out there and get some more great content for you guys. With that and the legal disclosures out of the way, let's jump right into it. So, top 10 companies. What we're going to do first and foremost is go through the top 10 from all the way from rates to technology and all the way through who we think is the best. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and pinpoint certain things like what's the best for a low credit score, what about DTI ratios, all that type of stuff. So let's jump right into it. Number one, right off the bat, especially because of all the stuff that they've been doing and they're different than a lot of different companies, Splash Financial. All the way around, their technology is improving. It's not the excellent, the best, but it's improving. But their rates are phenomenal. And why are their rates phenomenal? What Splash does is different than most companies. They have about 12 companies that their technology, once you put in an application, it actually searches those 12 companies for you and then brings back the best rate. It is awesome. Now, the reason why we say some of the tech is cumbersome is because that tech is great, but the process is a little choppy. So some of the companies that they partner with, if that's where your loan's going, they actually send you to that company. If it's another company, they might actually underwrite your loan right on Splash Financial. If it's going to one of the credit unions they partner with, there's some additional paperwork you got to sign. So because of all these nuances and complexities, from a user experience-wise, it's actually very hard to code and test and all that type of stuff, but they're getting better, okay? And when it all comes down to it, the rates that they have, because they're able to shop, is fantastic. And not only that, but we also look at things from our end, also from the business side. We have a great relationship with Splash. If there's ever, if one of our FitBucks members gets denied or they're having issues, all we have to do is email them, and within about 12 to 24 hours, we get a response back to be like, this is what's going on, and then we can go back to you and say, hey, let's do this, this, or this, and get the problem fixed. That is awesome. Okay, now from the consumer standpoint, I always say get the best rate as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. However, some people, it's up in the air because Splash doesn't service the loan. So after the loan is actually completed, it goes off to another company and they service it. Some companies are really great, others are a little bit more cumbersome, but that's something that we give feedback to the Splash all the time. And if we run into a company that they're working with that we get a lot of complaints on, we just tell them we don't want our people going there, period. So oftentimes they'll help us so that way anybody coming from FitBucks doesn't actually see those lenders. So we're able to bifurcate those out. Okay, so that's number one, Splash. Number two, Earnest. And this is kind of like one of those catch-22s, okay? So Earnest is fantastic. Great technology, underwrites your loans. They can do it in less than 24 hours. I mean, they can literally get you a loan in less than 24 hours. It is fantastic. Customer service, fantastic. Our number one gripe is on the back end on our side for the business standpoint. Like I mentioned on Splash that we have a great relationship with Splash. Not so much with Earnest on the backside. They just don't even really respond to us. Like if you need help, we have to go through Earnest with you. Like we'll get on a phone call and call Earnest customer service, but we don't have that relationship with their on the back end business side of things. But here's the cool thing too, is that Splash Financial, one of their partners is Earnest. So if you really want to shop Earnest, you don't even need to go there. You can actually go to Splash Financial and say, okay, I'm going to put my information in. They're going to shop Earnest. So if Earnest is the best rate, they're going to show that to you. And then if you click, you're going to be sent to Earnest and actually do the underwriting through Earnest. And so anybody that's interested in going to Earnest, I highly recommend going to Splash first because, again, if Earnest is the best rate, that's where they're going. But once the loan gets to Earnest, like from a consumer standpoint, it's fast, it's easy, it's awesome. The one thing that we get from people that they don't like about Earnest and their whole process is that the reason why they can give rates to so many people and really good rates is they have a proprietary underwriting system whereby you link your financial accounts, so like your bank accounts and that stuff. Some people don't like linking their accounts. So if that's you, just have a heads up on that. On to number 3, Commonbond. Again, that's one of those things where we have a great relationship with them. They have great technology. Technology is awesome. It takes them a little bit longer to underwrite than Earnest. Most of the time it takes about 2 to 5 days if you get them all the documents, which is still really, really fast for the lending industry. So awesome technology. The thing about Commonbond is that they tend to have a little bit higher rates than the other companies, but sometimes they're extremely competitive on specific types of loan, like a 15-year loan or a 10-year loan. So we use Commonbond quite a bit. Again, they are fantastic. We love our reps over at Commonbond. Another great company. Education Loan Finance comes in at number 4. This is also known as LFI. LFI is fantastic. Again, we have a great relationship with them. They also have really good rates. Specifically, the longer term, like 10, 15, 20 years tend to be like their sweet spot. Always very competitive. The one knock on LFI or Education Loan Finance is that they are backed by a bank, so they have more traditional underwriting. So sometimes with Education Loan Finance, it's a little bit tougher to get a loan, but they also have great rates. LendKey is number 5. Again, they shop a bunch of different credit unions, fantastic. The one knock on them is with LendKey, it takes them a little bit longer to underwrite. Most of the time it takes about, I would say about 5 to 10 days, depending on how fast you get your stuff in. And also sometimes there's this thing called a 10-day payoff statement or a 30-day, 20-day payoff statement, whatever it is. They really want that, and sometimes it's very hard to get that from your loan servicer, okay? So you might be running into some headaches there, but again, that's why we have our reps, because we could say, hey, like they can't get this doc, is there something else that we can do? And they help us get through that process. The other thing with LendKey is that they do use credit unions. So credit unions are nonprofits. So in order to get the loan, you need to join the credit union, which sometimes it's like a $5 deposit. Sometimes you have to pay an annual membership fee that once you just pay the first year, after the first year, you just drop it. So it's not a big deal. But just be having a heads up on that on LendKey. The other thing about LendKey too is that they have a phenomenal 5-year rate. They're always competitive on the 5-year student loan rate. So if you're going short term, LendKey is a good one to go to. Laurel, another one of our partners, comes in at number 6. Again, great technology. Consumer side, they do good. The issue with Laurel from the consumer standpoint is that unless you're like an MD or a dentist, the rates aren't very good. And every once in a while, they'll have like phenomenal rates for a lot of people, but then they don't. Okay, even I know a lot of you are part of professional associations, like the Dental Association, for example, and they get like a 0.25% extra discount. Even after that extra 0.25% discount, a lot of times, it's still not enough to actually beat some of the other companies like Splash and Earnest. Okay, so Laurel's great. I'm actually going to mention them a little bit later on too when we talk about spouses. They're fantastic. They also do something very unique that's different than a lot of other companies. If you're 1031 as an employee, which is an independent contractor, but you work in healthcare, instead of needing 2 years of documents to get approved for the loan, you actually only need a few months, and you just need to document certain things. So great for independent contractors also. SoFi, I mean, everybody knows SoFi because they're the largest. They were the earliest. They were the first. They were the largest. They have really good technology. I'll give them that. But rates compared to these other companies are not even close most of the time, unless you're what's called in the finance industry a Henry, which is a high net worth individual, so like an MD or something like that. And even MDs nowadays, like I see rates for MDs at other companies that are way better than SoFi. So SoFi does a lot of business, but it's just because of their marketing budget. Okay, so SoFi comes in at number 7. Number 8 is College Ave. We don't do too much with them on the loan refinance side of things. They have updated their application process. The reason why we didn't do a lot with them before was the application process was a little tedious. It's a lot better now. It's good now. It's just with COVID, we just haven't had a lot of times where they have really good rates. Where College Ave is at, like really good at, is actually in school. Their in-school loans are phenomenal. And so I'm hoping that those rates start to translate to student loan refinancing. Thrivent comes in at number 9. I'm going to talk about them a little bit later on. So I'm going to come back to them. Number 10 is Brazos student loans. Brazos is really good if you live in Texas. Okay, so that's the one nuance about them. If you live in Texas, definitely check out Brazos. They have some pretty competitive rates for residents here in the state of Texas. So those are the top 10. Now I'm going to go through the individual components, like if you have this specialty situation or this specialty situation, what we typically see. Again, number 1, most competitive rates. I already said it. Splash is number 1, and then Earnest comes in at number 2. Education loan finance, I would put right there, probably tied with Commonbond. Oftentimes they're right in that area with Commonbond. So that is most competitive rates. I mentioned for the 5-year option, LendKey is also very good. So if you're doing a shorter term option, LendKey is very good. Best for high debt to income ratio. So this is individuals that have really high like monthly payments on their loans. Again, Splash and Earnest are number 1 and number 2 on that. Number 3 would be LendKey. LendKey actually does some pretty good stuff for people that have some high debt to income ratios. Okay. Best for low credit scores. So when I say low credit scores, if you have a credit score below 700, these are the companies that we would recommend going to. Earnest, LendKey, and Laurel. They do phenomenal work with individuals below 700, especially Earnest. They've been fantastic. Okay. Easiest application, Earnest by far is number 1. Commonbond is number 2. SoFi is number 3, and a lot of people are shocked that we put SoFi behind Commonbond and Earnest, and the reason being is because we get feedback from people that SoFi every once in a while is not very good for them. They have problems communicating with them and whatnot, and if it wasn't for that, SoFi would be right up there. But Earnest, Commonbond, in terms of the application process, we hardly ever get anybody to complain. Okay, best for borrowers needing a non-spouse cosigner. Splash, LendKey, and Education Loan Finance are all fantastic in that regard. They all have a cosigner release. Commonbond is also very good, but Commonbond has this nuance that if you qualify on your own for any of their loans, you cannot add a cosigner. Okay, so you can only add a cosigner with Commonbond if you don't qualify for one of their loans. Okay, so it makes it a little bit harder to get a cosigner. But Splash, LendKey, and Education Loan Finance, fantastic for non-spouse cosigners. Now there's a special category though, spousal cosigners. Most companies do this weird thing where when it comes to student loan refinances, if you're married, they look at one income or the other one. They don't combine it, okay? And oftentimes when you have a spousal cosigner, it's, this is one of the places that we work with a lot with people because it's so nuanced. The best one is Splash Financial, and even with Splash, you have to be directed to a certain company of theirs. And so that's one of the things that will help you on is when you actually apply, we will then email our rep saying, hey, this is going to be a spousal cosigner, direct it to this company, and they'll do it for you. Laurel also very good at that, and Thrivent is also very good. I mentioned I would bring them up. Thrivent's cosigner piece with their spouses, that's really the only time we go to them is if they have a spousal cosigner. And we only really go to Thrivent if Splash and Laurel can't give the person a loan for whatever reason. Okay, so those are the 3 for spousal cosigners. Greatest options and customization. Again, this is just all the different types of loans. Can I customize a loan? Again, Earnest, Splash, Commonbond, by far the best of that. Same thing with innovation. Those 3 companies are fantastic. Best for complex situations. Again, Splash, Laurel, Commonbond are fantastic. I would throw Earnest up there too as probably like 3B. They're in that. Refinance rates. I mean, where are they at right now? It's hard to say who has the best rates like all the time because I brought this up earlier. Splash, Earnest, they always tend to be up there with the most competitive with educational finance and Commonbond. And that's where things are at right now. Again, best student loan refinance companies. Just from an overall perspective, if you guys need help, be sure to check out our free student loan refinance service. If not, you have a good grasp and you know that you want to refinance, use the links below. That way, of course, we get paid on those, and that helps keep the channel alive and keep the word out about FitBucks. We'll be seeing you soon. Thank you.